Since I released my first transfer special video in my Non-League to Legends series this year, I've had a lot of questions asking me to explain in more detail how I do transfers in Football Manager in non-league. That's what this video is. That's an intro. Hello folks, and welcome to a little bit of a Football Manager tutorial / guide where I'm going to have a look and show you how I do transfers in non-league. If you want to see an example of a finished process, Non-League to Legend is a series that is running on the channel. I'll link to it down below. The first 10 parts really of that take you through the first season and culminate in the great rebuild, the big transfer window we did at the end of the first season, and kind of links in to the first point I'm going to make in this video. But before I make that point, I would just like to ask that if you are enjoying this kind of content, the tutorial guide stuff is a little bit different from what I normally do. Please make sure you support it, because the more support it gets, the more views it will get, and the more likely I am to do more of this stuff in the future if you like it. So leave a thumbs up, leave a comment, share it around, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, all that good stuff. And it helps. It shows me that you want more of this kind of content and not just churning out the Let's Plays constantly, which, I mean, I've been doing it for 7 years. I'm happy to do that, but people have been asking for this. So vote with your feet. Give it a thumbs up. Thank you very much. So as part of this demonstration, I have taken over as the manager of Tonbridge Angels in the National League South. Are they newly promoted? They're not a team I'm particularly familiar with. Apparently they've been in the National League South for 3 years. It shows how often I venture down south that I hadn't really noticed them. But we've taken over as manager of Tonbridge Angels so that I can demonstrate the process. But before we demonstrate the process, I mentioned there were a couple of rough rules, rough guidelines that I stick to when I'm doing non-league transfers. The biggest one, the most important thing when it comes to non-league transfers is there's no transfer window down here, and that means there's no rush. It's very different from doing transfers higher up the pyramid where you have to get everything done by the end of August, or you're stuck and you have to make do until the next transfer window. We don't have that here. There's a transfer deadline day in like March, April time. I don't know exactly when it is, but you've got until then to get your transfers done in your first season. So you don't need to rush into anything. If you only sign 1 or 2 players over the course of your first summer when you take over the job, that's fine. Using my non-league to legend save as an example again, I had probably only signed a couple of players before the first match, but then over the course of that season, 5, 6, 7, 8 more probably came in at various points when the right players finally came along. And we didn't do a massive rebuild until we'd been at the club a year. All of the contracts has expired, because you can see here at Tonbridge, this is the great thing about non-league. Pretty much all your contracts, if not all your contracts, will be expiring at the end of your first season. So you can use that first season to choose which ones you want to keep. Everyone else can leave, and then you do your big rebuild in your first full summer, so at the end of your first season. And that's when you can really look to bring in some significant new talent. So the first season is very much taking your time, getting used to the squad you've got, deciding who you're going to keep around, bringing in the right people as and when they show up on your scout reports, only for the main event to happen after a year. So, like I say, all of these contracts are expiring. So we're just going to kind of get used to these players, see who we want to keep around. I mean, the star ratings give you a rough guide of who are probably going to be our better players. So Lewis Gard, for example, is probably going to be someone that we're going to want to keep around. He's only 22, 4.5-star current ability, 5-star potential ability. He's just signed from Southend. He's probably going to be pretty good. Scott Wagstaff, on the other hand, also quite a high star rating, but also 32 years old, turns 33 this summer, trying to rival me with the beard. It's all wrong with Scott Wagstaff, so we're probably not going to be looking to use him long term. Realistically, I imagine the top 3 or 4 of these who are under 30 are the ones that are going to be sticking around next year. Some of them might burst through and end up quite decent. Someone like Lewis Collins at 20 years old with 4.5 stars of potential. We're probably going to keep him around. TQ Addy, we probably keep him around, but a lot of these are going to be gone. It's a squad of how many players? It's a squad of only 17 people. One of them's in on loan, although we've got someone out on loan as well, so it does balance out. So we probably need another 4 or 5 bodies to get us through season 1. We don't have a huge amount of money to do that. If we look at the finances, we've got about a spare £300 a week, which if you look at the salaries the players are earning, that's basically one player or a few very cheap, very young players. So we're probably going to have to look at loans early on as well, and potentially look to start shifting some of these players out. We've been a little bit unlucky with Tonbridge when compared to my Peterborough Sports team in non-league to legend, because at Peterborough Sports, about half the squad were on non-contracts. So we were able to pretty much release them as soon as we found replacements. It's going to be a little bit more challenging at Tonbridge because there's nobody on a non-contract. We've got a loan that goes back on the 1st of January, but he's actually a player we're probably going to want to use. He's likely to be our main striker. So that's a challenge in and of itself. But everyone else is under contract until the end of the season. So the only way we're going to get these players gone is to convince somebody else to take them off us, probably for free. We're not really looking for transfer fees at this level unless bigger clubs come in and are really chasing a player like Lewis Gard. I'd want a transfer fee for. Kevin Manuel, our 23-year-old 2-star potential ability backup goalkeeper. Not so much. If someone wants him, they can have him for free, and that's even reflected in his transfer value. So we'll be looking to move players on for free, or maybe try and persuade some gullible little rascal to take them on loan and pay their wages, so we can then churn those wages back round into the first team. But there are a couple of things we can do to try and make our job a little bit easier early on to just fill the squad up now. We need bodies in. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to head to scouting. What you'll notice from here is we don't currently have any players scouted at all. So we can't go out and be getting players yet, but we can start laying the groundwork. Tonbridge have got a £95,000 scouting budget for this season. That's more than double the money we've got in the bank. I don't know that a club this size need to be spending that kind of money on scouting. In fact, I'd be quite comfortable just scouting the surrounding divisions. We don't need to scout the whole of England. So we'd be fine with just over £50,000. So what we can do is shift to a lower scouting range, and then that remaining scouting budget, we can move over into transfer budget, which we can then in turn move over into wage budget. And all of a sudden, we've gone from only having an extra £300 to play with to an extra, what, £1,200 to play with. That one first team player has just turned into 4 first team players we can bring in on permanent contracts before we even have to start looking at loans. That gives us a little bit more flexibility to play. If I now feel like I can probably fill this squad up with players that we need in key positions. This is obviously where the squad planner comes in, which we can't use because we haven't put a tactic in yet. I'm just having a quick look. What are we going to do here? We're probably going to be doing, I mean, it looks like a 4-4-2 to me. There's nothing particularly snazzy. Let's just slap a quick 4-4-2 wing play in, just so we've got a system to build around on here, and then get an idea of what we've got. Ask your assistant to shuffle this around, go to full squad view, and get an idea of where we need to strengthen. We know we need 4 players, 5 players maybe. A squad of 22, 2 in each position would be nice. So what do we need? We need a left back. We've only got one of those. We need a right back. We've only got one of those, and he's a centre back, I think. He's a right back. So we can ignore him on the centre backs list. How many centre backs have we got? If he's a right back, we've only got 2. So we probably need a left back, a centre back. It would be nice if one of them can also play right back, so we get some cover there. Certainly need some strength in depth in defence. Up front, we have got 4 strikers. We've got one who's first team ready. We've got Dylan Gavin, who's only on loan until January, so we have to bear that in mind, although when he goes, it does free up £250 a week of salary. And then we've got 2 youngsters. I don't mind those 2 youngsters being my backup. What we probably need is a long-term plan for Dylan Gavin when he goes back, or else we're going to be left with just one first team ready striker. So we probably need, what we're thinking, a left back, a centre back, ideally one of them covers right back as well, a striker, and then looking at the midfield, we've got plenty in central midfield. If anything, too much in central midfield here. So this is where we could maybe look to move somebody on. I'm looking at you, Tom Parkinson. You're earning £230 a week. I don't think, I mean, you've been here a long time. The locals aren't going to like this, but you're done, son. Get him gone. Can't even put him on the transfer list. Is he already on the transfer list? It's not giving me the option to put him on the transfer list. Well, he's done. He's gone, or will be gone. Hopefully we can sell him that frees up another squad spot. Tommy Fag, I'm looking at you as well, thinking, are you actually any good? Because we only really need 4 centre mids. I think we can probably get rid of Tommy Fag as well. So he can go on the transfer list. Why wouldn't it let me put Parkinson on the transfer list? Is he out of... Weird. I wonder if we could just do a termination. We'll look into that. We probably can't. But we need a striker. We need a couple of defenders, maybe some wide players. Let's go out and see what we can get. What we don't have yet is anyone who's currently scouted. I always play with attribute masking on, so the player search screen is fairly useless because you pick a player and, oh, look, we don't have any attributes, so we can't filter for attributes anyway. So we can't just go on here and start filtering the player search screen. It's fairly useless in a save like the one we're doing. So we need to get our scouting up and running. Our first recruitment meeting will be coming in soon, but we can get a head start on the process by going to our director of football. Now, we do have a director of football. Usually at non-league, you don't have a director of football, and it doesn't matter because you can use this screen anyway. Fact is, we've got one at Tonbridge, so that's fine. But what you can do on here, and it amazes me every time I do this, how few people seem to know that this is a thing that exists in the game. But you can go to transfers, go to director of football, ask them to suggest transfer targets. We've not got any money to pay for transfers. We will come back and look at loans shortly, and towards the end of the season we'll be looking at end of contract players, but for now we're looking for free transfers, and we may as well just ask for free transfers in every position at the moment, because then we can get an idea of what's out there. And this just gives us our director of football's recommendations for potential signings that we could bring in for free to fill these squad gaps. We don't know anything more about them other than the fact that they're for free and our director of football thinks they're half decent. But it's a nice starting point. And then what we can do is we can just go through and take them all on trial and start to get some players into the team and having a look at them. Now, your instinct here, as a normal person who can use a computer, is to try and highlight all of them and then take all on trial. For some reason, you can't do it in Football Manager. You used to be able to. You can't anymore. So you are going to have to go through this screen and offer them all trials individually. It'll take you a little while, but you are going to start picking up some decent options. Those of you who are watching Non-League Legend as well have probably noticed Jordan Ado Antoine is on this screen. He was my first signing for Peterborough Sports in Non-League Legend. We needed a left back. He came up. He was pretty good. I noticed Seth Nana Twamasi as a Peterborough United fan. That is a name from the past. Goodness me. But you never know which ones of these are going to be any good. Some of them might be rubbish. Some of them might be too expensive. But if you can get 1 or 2 little gems out of here early on, like I say, with Peterborough Sports, I think we only signed 1 from this initial batch. But it was Ado Antoine, and he's still a regular player for us a season on. He played through the full first season. He got his new contract extension going into the next year. He's still knocking around the place. So it was a good signing. Like I say, we didn't have to rush to get him, but the fact that we got him this early and he was quite decent was handy. Right, we've offered all those trials. Now we just need to wait for them to come in. Bear in mind, you can only offer, I think it's 30 trials at a time. So you're not going to be able to offer loads and loads of these. Basically, getting the 3 for each position that you get at the director of football is pretty much your limit. But this is something you're not just restricted to doing this at the start of the save. You can do this. I'll be doing this every summer until I'm like in the championship. You'll reach a level where the free transfers just aren't any good anymore. And actually the director of football recommendations start to get a little bit ropey as you hit the bigger clubs. But with these lower level teams, I mean, straight away, first guy who's come up, potentially League 2 standard centre-back, Kevin Joshua. He's 6'6". We don't have all the attributes for him yet. We have to keep him at the club a little bit longer to be able to get his attributes in. But for our first look, my first impression from my coaching team is that he's probably better than any other centre-back we've got at the club. He's got good potential, and he's 6'6". I'm looking at him thinking, yes, please, there's Ado Antoine. We talked about him before. Potential League 1 player. This is why I signed him from Peterborough Sports. Look how good he is. It's ridiculous. And they're all pretty good. There's so many. You want to sign them all. Now, obviously, we can't sign them all because we've got a limited budget. So we are going to have to be a little bit selective about which ones of these that we bring in. In the past, we'd have gone to the squad depth screen and had a look. This beautiful new squad planner doesn't actually include trial players. The only way you can get them in is if you drag them in one by one. There's no way to filter to put the trial players in. So it is a little bit of a pain in the backside. What you can do, you can add players from your senior squad, and you can pick the like I know Sam French is a trialist, so you can add them one by one. Honestly, I'm not going to do that. It's so fiddly. We're going old school, and we're literally going to go through position by position, starting with the positions we know we need to strengthen and having a look to see who we've got. So I know we need a left back. It's going to be Ado Antoine again, isn't it? We know we need a left back. The best left back that we've got in on trial is Jordan Ado Antoine. I think we're probably going to sign him because he's so much better than what we've currently got. We've only got one. So then we're going to go to him immediately, try and bring him in. We don't want to make any promises. Be careful what playing time you're offering. If they're not going to be an important player, don't offer them it because they will get grumpy. But once you've got your promises in, we get into non-league negotiations. We don't want to do any kind of signing on fees, and we want to try and minimize the amount of money we're spending on wages. Through years of trial and error, I've found the best way to negotiate at this level is to go back 4 clicks on the minus as your opening offer. So 1, 2, 3, 4, start them there, and they don't immediately get upset. If they'll say no, but then you can go back 3. And you're trying to basically, there you go. So we've got him to agree. You can do the same with the appearance fee. I probably should have done the same with the appearance fees. If I wasn't performing for camera, it'd have been -4, -4, -4, -4, and negotiate from there. But we've got him down to £210 a week of salary. It tells us at the bottom that with the appearance fees and things as well, that's going to add £275 a week to our wage budget, which you can then immediately have a look on your committed spending. So we've still got like £900 a week. We can still keep going. So then we go to the next position. We needed a right back as well, didn't we? So let's look at right backs. We've only got one at the moment. The best one just by star rating, and you don't have to do it just on star rating. Obviously, you can go through this at your own pace, wait for them to get all their attributes in when they've been trialed for a little bit longer. But I'm going to have a look through. I don't want to sign a 38-year-old. I don't think, no matter how neat and beautiful his beard is. To be honest, none of these are filling me with excitement because of their ages. I want to bring in young players with the potential to get better. So we might put a pin in right back and go and have a look at centre back. What have we got here? So we had 3 at the club, but we know one of them's a right back. So we've only got 2. So we need at least 1 in. You've got this guy at 24 who looks pretty good. You've got Kevin Joshua we looked at before. I mean, I already know I want this guy because he's 6'6" and has that decent potential. So let's try and get him, and I'll show the negotiations done properly this time. So once again, we don't want the signing on fee. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 on there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, okay, he's come back with a counter. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And still not there. So 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1. 1, 1, 1. And we're just going to go down 1 there. And that one's fallen through. Didn't really go to plan. Probably didn't need to push him that hard. But because we've got the new style agent stuff in he's not got an agent. If he had an agent, we could reopen those talks. We'll just leave it. We can come back to him, circle back round in a couple of weeks. If he's still not got a contract, we can go and get him. In the meantime, we could go and get Chris Smith. We're obviously going to look through the rest of the team as well. Do we need a striker? Probably do. Do we want this guy? And you just go through it position by position, picking who you want and having a look through and seeing what you've got and trying to get them for as cheap as possible whilst sitting within your budgets. But don't rush. You don't need to fill the squad now. As you saw with right back, I've looked at that. None of those right backs inspire me. So I'm not going to get them because I know we can sign a right back in December. Our scouting meeting is coming soon. Our scouting reports will start to kick in. We need to make sure we've actually got some scouts. We do. We can hire 2 more scouts. We can hire a chief scout and another scout. So we need to get on that. But once our scout reports start coming in, we'll start to get recommendations. You don't need to rush it at this level. The one other thing you can do right at the start of the game, still in June, is obviously look at loans as well. So if we couldn't find a right back for free, we could potentially get this guy on loan We can try and trial him, or we could just scout him. It's going to cost us a bit of money because he's up in Scotland, but let's scout him, see what our scout thinks. And he might be the one that we decide to bringing him in as a loan. Normally what I would do is wait and bring in loans after I've brought in my permanent players and just kind of fill the gaps in the squad with loans. But it's really just a case of going through this and constantly repeating the process. Once your week of trial lists are expired, bring in the next week. You don't always have to bring in all 30. Like, there's no point in me bringing in central midfielders on trial because we don't need any. We know we've got 6 in the squad already. It doesn't really matter how good these guys are. None of them are going to sign for us, so we don't need to keep bringing central midfielders in. But we'll perhaps constantly go back and relook at right backs. And then once we start getting the scouting reports in, you start building up a bunch of players here as well. Always trial first in non-league, because realistically we're going to be signing free transfers. So we always want to be bringing him in on trial first, and just keep going through, going again. You're doing this all season long, so that by the time you get to the end of the season, you've got a squad of maybe 10, 12 players who are made up partly of the guys who were here at the start, partly of the guys you've brought in over the course of your first season. But you want about a squad of 10 or 12 and then get into that first full summer and then just bring in 10 more players. Just really throw loads of these youngsters at the squad. You'll have loads of players released from Premier League youth academies. They'll show up on your scout reports. They'll show up on your director of football recommendations, and just keep constantly going back through and looking for players. And it's pretty straightforward once you get into the knack of doing it to get a very good, young, talented squad that you aren't paying an absolute ton of money to. And that's it. That's how I do my transfers at non-league. If you want to see more of this kind of stuff, let me know down in the comments. I'm aware I've only shown you the first window. If you want me to show you what we would do in more detail in that second window, we can do that. We can holiday forward a season with Tonbridge and do that second big summer of transfers. Let me know down in the comments. Or if there's other stuff you would like to know about how I play Football Manager, or other tutorials or guides or things you'd like to see, let me know down in the comments section. I will get them made for you. If you have enjoyed this one, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos. Make sure you check out Non-League to Legend as well, because it was a request in the comments for that led to this video being made. And thank you very much for watching.